Well, I mean, the short answer is economics doesn't do a good job of addressing all these other critical issues to us. So if you go back to kind of the let's talk about kind of markets. I mean, I think what is incredibly powerful about economics is they're the people that really study the power of markets, and markets are a fantastic way to organize things in certain circumstances or where they're the fit for purpose for the objectives. But they're only one way to organize. So let me give an analogy here or an example here. So, I mean, Americans watching this, in the United States, you could argue that the National Football League is the most valuable sports franchise. It's incredible. It's exciting. I'm worried about head trauma at this stage, but it is something that, so many people are involved in and so many people love to be part of. But at the end of the day, the system is essentially a communist system. The way it's organized is a communist system. There's revenue sharing. There's a draft. In fact, you have so little competition. I mean, all that's happening, you agree on the dates that you're coming together, you agree on the rules, you agree on how television revenue is shared, you agree on who sells peanuts in what part of the stadium, where people park. So you have an incredible amount of cooperation to produce a very small amount of competition in a very limited space under certain very restrictive rules. So, that to me sounds like, let's call it communism. The other very valuable sports franchise in the world is the English Premier League. So there you have Manchester United, Manchester City, Arsenal, clubs like that. That is a capitalist system. So capitalism, we'll talk a bit more later in the program. But there, people keep their own revenue. There's no such thing as a draft. The richest clubs simply buy the best players to move up the table. It's really quite cutthroat. The bottom three teams drop out of the league and go to another league entirely. And there was actually an American that bought a English Premier League team and didn't know that. So when his team he was making money, but when his team got relegated, they went close to bankruptcy. So that is a capitalist system.
Right.
So then how do you choose between let's call it the communist system, the capitalist system? Well, you can't make that choice unless you have what the objective is. So if your objective is to have a sport where you have a high degree of parity and almost every team but one, I believe, has gone to the NFL Super Bowl, for example, that's how you would choose the system. Whereas if you wanted to have kind of the English top teams competing with people like Barcelona and Inter Milan in Italy and Bayern Munich, the top teams in Europe, you would want the kind of English Premier system. So the systems that we choose are related to what the objectives are. Now, so how does this relate back to the question? So all the things you laid out, things like climate change, things like inequality, things like the environment, the role of technology, those are also part of the human experience. And I think the problem for economics has been, we have something very powerful to say about part of the human experience, but we've tended not to work with other people that have things to say about other parts of the human experience. And I think economics is much more powerful as part of a kind of, let's call it holistic or a more complete view of what we're trying to accomplish for people at the end of the day. So we have anthropologists who have very important things to say about people. We have increasingly neuroscience, which has very important things to say about people. Obviously, people have studied the environment, and we all understand in the last few years with the kind of context of the climate emergency, how critical that is. All of those are also critical parts of the human experience. And I think economics would make a bigger contribution to the common good, like we talked about last question, if economists were working with these other disciplines. And of course, when I was studying economics, started in 1980, we didn't really have anything to do with other disciplines, and there's also always been this kind of hubris about economics. We could do mathematics, we had numbers, we had complex linear equations, multiple linear equations that required advanced mathematical techniques to solve. So we kind of separated ourselves from the other disciplines. But the result is that our contribution to the common good, I think, has been diminished. So we haven't had enough to say. And of course, if we come to a question like the environment, I think the contribution of economists needs to also be understood to be part of the solution. We don't have the answer to all of those issues. We have part of the answer, and we need to work with others. But I think you're going to see increasingly, much more powerful insights coming out by the combination of disciplines. To take take one example, I mean, the neuroscience I mentioned, I mean, I think economists approached this in a very simplistic way. I mean, we had Kahneman and Tversky start thinking about the bounds of rationality in economic speak. But you know, when you look at what the way neuroscience understands human behavior, that is so much richer than what economists have. And if we combine forces with, you know, economists and neuroscientists to think about the way people behave beyond just kind of the very basic behavioral economics we've seen in the last 10 or 15 years, I think we'll get much more powerful insights. And I also think economists would really find it fascinating to work with people who are from other disciplines on that. And it would kind of expand, and we'd have a much more holistic view of what people are about.